Today, Jeff, that was one of the best talks I've ever seen on UFOs because number one, right when you think you know what a UFO is, you forgot the first word is unidentified. You blew me away, sir. You really did.
Thank you, sir.
Because I've heard of the Phoenix Lights. Most people have heard of that. And when you get here to Arizona, you get kind of accustomed to strange things happening. Whether it's in Sedona or Phoenix or even a little town like Bisbee.
Sure.
When you hear about the mines, the copper mines, the ghosts.
Yeah.
Or what's that little place up there by Sedona that's so creepy I can't go there? Jerome. Oh my God. Like, hey, whose idea was to build a town on the side of a cliff? Did they have a committee? What were they smoking? I mean, come on. Well, it's so haunted as hell. I mean, even people that don't believe go, oh, hell no. I mean, I know skeptics that won't go into that hotel. They take one step on the step going, nah. So I'm telling you, paranormal stuff happens in Arizona all the time.
I asked Jeff earlier, what kind of UFO activity is in Tucson?
Near constant, from what I'm hearing, and from what Jeff told me, because I've got a lot of friends in Great Britain, a lot of friends in Europe, especially Northern Europe, where they have a phenomenon called will-o'-wisps or will-o'-the-wisps.
Yeah.
They have different names for it, but it basically are, for lack of a better phrase, orbs of light that travel in groups, sometimes in groups of 3, 6, or 9, sometimes as a dozen, but they seem to be coordinated, but yet not connected to anything.
Yeah.
And they don't seem to be in this dimension, although they're visible to many people.
Right.
Not everybody, but many. And your talk today, sir, I kept thinking, well, okay, we talk about giants and Nephilim and things like that. What if there's a giant version? See, it's okay. What if there was a giant version of will-o'-wisps?
Sure.
And they're hanging out at South Mountain?
Sure.
Or they're connected somehow, because no one in Europe believes the will-o'-wisps are foreign, nor extraterrestrial. They believe they are from here.
Sure.
And whether they call them sprites or fairies or whatever other names they don't really know either. And I thought, it doesn't look that different from the screenshots you were putting up there on the screen. And that's the first thing that came to me. I thought, those are living beings. So,
That makes sense.
And then what Jeff was talking about, you can check the rock. You can go in the Grand Canyon. You can see where the water levels came up. Or you see where it almost looks like a rip current.
Also in my area, like I find seashells on top of the mountains.
Exactly.
I found seashells on South Mountain.
Sure, yeah. See,
I sure did.
Well, they got there somehow.
I have a question.
Yeah.
It's okay question.
Yeah.
What types of things would you normally see in Tucson? Is there like an atypical type of UFO? Is it an orb? Is it?
I think it's mostly lights. From what I could see from right now, it's mostly lights. The heavier populations, or should I say, the more sacred mountains, we're going to get into different things. It's not only lights, but what the archaeologist likes to call anthropomorphs, shapeshifters, changing shape, changing colors, just weird stuff that really doesn't look like spaceships, but a living creature, a living entity.
It just looks like it shouldn't be there or moving in a different.
It doesn't look like anything anybody's ever seen.
Yeah, this is something different than what we're led to believe or what we've been understanding. Sure, there's UFOs and spaceships, technologies, and aliens, but I really think that there's something different here also. And the kicker is they're not from another world. This is their planet also.
Yeah.
They've always been here. And this is what the Native Americans tell us.
So it's like the movie.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. Well, and also too, the detailed research you did on the Hoboken tribe and how they purposefully did their petroglyphs and the stories, they all connect.
Sure.
So whether you're reading Hancock's work or you're reading Carrie Cassidy or you're listening to the History Channel, the stories line up.
That is very fascinating, and you're correct, because in researching all this phenomenon, it's wherever you go around the world, it seems like the same story. It may be told just a little bit different, but it's basically the same interpretation. And the rock art.
I was just about to say.
Yeah.
You were showing pictures of petroglyphs that are almost identical on the other side of the world.
Yeah, and that's fascinating.
How do you
too.
do that?
And it really looks like the same artist is doing this.
How do you do that? Yeah,
And people from all over the world don't even know each other,
they shouldn't.
but they're erecting pyramids, they're doing spirals, they're doing lizard people, they're doing anthropomorphs. They don't know each other.
Well, and you're the first person
How
that
do
I've
you
ever
do it?
heard explain what the glyphs actually mean. Like whether the man has his hands up or his hands down, or coyotes pointing the way to a secret
Sure.
sacred site.
Deer,
Or the deer. I never heard that before.
Uh-huh.
Because a friend of mine, Ted Andrews, who passed away some years ago, did a couple of books on animal totems and talked liberally about all that stuff. I've never heard anyone say that a petroglyph, if it has a deer on it, the antlers are a map.
Some
And
of
they
them.
tell you,
Some of
some of them, but they tell you which pathways to take to find portals, open time gateways, and even how the glyph is a spiral. If it's clockwise, it's
A doorway in.
a gateway in,
Yeah.
and if it's counterclockwise, it's a gateway out.
Right.
It's amazing.
No portals tonight, everybody's going.
Okay, welcome to Tucson Move On. Okay, how many people, is it your first time? Oh, awesome. How many people have been here every month? Yay, like to see those hands. Awesome. Well, my name is Karen Hill, I'm the director of Tucson Move On, and I've been interested in UFOs since ever. They're in movies and everything, so it's hard for me to figure out when, because I was always just interested. There's more fun stuff out here than school and books and stuff. But we have a website, TucsonMoveOn.com. Have any of you guys been there? Yep. If you have questions like who is the next speaker, when is the next meeting, it's all on the website, and I'm adding more to it weekly. It would be daily, but so it's weekly. But I'm going to be adding Easter eggs, which is fun because I have a lot of unique side stories because I travel everywhere and I'm always collecting stories. But there's kind of no weird pages to put them in there. But I'm putting Easter eggs in there, and then if you see Easter egg, click it, and then you'll read something fun. Cool. Well, our speaker today is Jeff. He's been an amateur archaeologist for 30 years and a professional UFOologist for 20 years. He has given lectures at Ultra City, Tombstone, Paracon, and Tucson Move On, but in 2012. And his work has been featured on Ancient Aliens, UFO Hunter Show, and many Phoenix news stories. So welcome, Jeff.
Former Navy fighter pilot Brian Griggs has a new article in Politico titled, "We Have a Real UFO Problem, and It's Not Balloons." He joins me now. Ryan, I'm with you. You've seen weirder things than a Chinese balloon while you've been in the sky, yes?
Certainly. We've seen things that we haven't been able to explain as simply a balloon. And as we've been talking about the various objects that have been shot down over the U.S., there's been a pretty clear bifurcation between what we've been calling a Chinese balloon and what these other three objects are. And while we don't know what they are, the fact of the matter is we should know what's above our head at any given time. Whether it's a national security issue or whether it's a scientific question, we need to figure out what's above our heads.
That video that we just showed, was that from your squad?
Yes, that was in 2015 while we were aboard the USS Theodore Roosevelt off the coast of Jacksonville, Florida. We were doing training missions, preparing for our combat deployment. We recorded that object as well as other objects that were operating in our vicinity on a regular basis. And we simply didn't know what they were, but we did know that they were a safety hazard for our air crew and for our training missions. And we've been looking for the right way to report and deal with those issues ever since.
But Ryan, what was that thing?
That's what we're still trying to figure out.
Something is in the sky and something is happening, and I'll go to my death knowing that what I saw was true.
Thousands of people all over Arizona saw something that night.
I believe the Phoenix lights are real.
I thought, wow, I'm just seeing things that most people are never going to see in a lifetime.
March 13th, 1997. The skies above Arizona ignite.
Major sighting here.
Fiery globes seen by thousands.
They started multiplying. One light became two lights.
Do ancient clues over 1,000 years old show a pattern? On the evening of March 13th, 1997, residents throughout Phoenix, Arizona are outside looking skyward. The large number of spectators are there to gaze at the Hale-Bopp comet, a comet last seen more than 2,000 years ago. But instead, something else appears in the darkness. Something quite unexpected. A mass sighting that came to be known as the Phoenix Lights. The most famous aspect of the case is the videotape footage of anomalous lights that appeared over Phoenix around 10 p.m. The investigation aims to find the answers to the numerous events in Arizona's crowded skies. Pat Husker will uncover local history of UFO sightings in the Phoenix area. Pat meets Jeff Woolwine, a UFO researcher at the foot of the White Tank Mountains. These hills are riddled with petroglyphs, rock art carved into the landscape primarily by the Hohokam, a Native American people who lived here from 200 BCE to 1400 CE and then mysteriously disappeared. Pat and Jeff hiked to the spot where strange petroglyphs have been found. Among the petroglyphs is an image Jeff believes to be significant.
You'll notice this interesting line here. It has a black hair, black hair, black hair, and a line. In today's world, what we like to call them is barbells.
Barbell-shaped UFOs, like this one videotaped over Phoenix on January 24th, 2005, are well known to modern researchers. It's possible that local tribespeople were inspired to record their own sightings on these very rocks nearly a millennium ago.
And when you say barbell, you mean a barbell-shaped UFO?
Barbell-shaped UFO, correct.
I've been an amateur archaeologist for like 30 years. I love archaeology, I love history, I'm really deep into it. And I remember right in the beginning of the summer of 2004, because I hadn't seen them, so, at this time, I'm going to hunt them down. I'm going to hunt down the Phoenix Lights. And so I remember seeing on television a Native American who worked at one of the Pueblo Indian art museums in downtown Phoenix. I saw him on Channel 8, and he's up there on South Mountain in Phoenix, and he's talking about petroglyphs, right? And this is what, 2004, and so the mass sighting of March 13, 1997, that occurred in 1997, and here we're in 2004, and there hasn't been anything, no conversations, no anything on the history of Phoenix. Nothing to do with what the Native Americans say about these lights in the sky. And so when I saw Dave, his name was Dave Morris, and when I saw him on Channel 8 and he's talking about these petroglyphs, one of the people there said, hey, this stick figure man looks like he's looking up at something above his head. And Dave quickly turned around and said, yes, that's part of the interpretations here, is that our ancestors saw and recorded things in the sky. Oh, what? Are you kidding me? What? We have strange lights in the sky, now we have strange markings on the rocks out here. There has to be a connection. Too much of a coincidence. There's too much, everything fell into place. It was totally weird. And I found this apartment a mile away from South Mountain on the east side, on the second story, with a window facing that mountain. I mean, it was perfect, right? How perfect can I get? So I sat there for 3 years. And I watched, it didn't take long, I watched these things come out of the sky, come down on South Mountain, leave from South Mountain, right? And there was, when I first started, because, you know, everyone, we're thinking technology, right? We're thinking spaceships, right? We're thinking aliens, right? And so I saw this thing come down on South Mountain. So I go out there, and I'm thinking spaceships, technology, there's got to be evidence, a cross circle, something, right? So I find the perfect spot. I found the spot where this thing came down at, and I'm looking for evidence. I don't see anything, but what do I see? I see a big, huge boulder. And it's got a stick figure guy looking up at the exact same thing that I saw in the sky yesterday. What? And spirals. Right? And spirals. I'm like, wait a minute, dude. Hold the phone. What is going on here? Okay, so now it's time to call in the guy that I saw on television. So that's what I did. I said, hey, Dave. I didn't tell him what I was doing. I didn't want to scare him. You know, I told him, hey, I'm making a documentary. I'm really interested in the petroglyphs. I'm interested in the Native American history of Phoenix. Yeah, could you take me, I saw you on Channel 8 last year, could you take me up on South Mountain and teach me the petroglyphs, you know, teach me the ways of, you know, the correct interpretation of these glyphs. Oh yeah, sure, totally cool. We went up there on South Mountain, we spent about 2.5, maybe 3 hours up on South Mountain, and I tell you what, he was telling me some crazy things, right? Because back at the time, I'm still thinking, technology, spaceships, little green men from Mars, okay? But he's saying something else. He's talking about spirits. He's talking about spirits of the earth and the sky. He's talking about spiral doorways. And these spiral doorways are symbols for the emergence point into the underworld. So we see a spiral, and it's going clockwise, meaning it's a doorway in. And so 9 times out of 10, that spiral is going to end at a crack in the stone. And he's telling me that crack is the emergence point. That is the doorway to the underworld. And I'm like, wait a minute. How can a big, huge spaceship, V-shaped craft get in a crack like that, man? What is up with that? But that's what he's telling me these petroglyphs are talking about. He says when the spiral ends up, it's a doorway in the sky. It is a vortex in the sky. I said, a vortex? He goes, yeah, it is a vortex in the sky. He's like, that spiral is like looking down into a tunnel, into a hole. You're looking down into a hole, or into another world. He says the spiral is going clockwise is the doorway in, a spiral going counterclockwise is the doorway out. And there were so many times when I come across panels where I find a doorway in and a doorway out. And then all these, what the archaeologist likes to call anthropomorphs, shape shifters, right? Because that's what the Native Americans have been telling us all these years. And who better yet would know what is going on here than the people who lived here before? I mean, it just boggles my mind on how, you know, the March 13th, 1997 lights took place, but no one's looking into this. You know, there's so much evidence out here. There's another story to the Phoenix lights. And I'm finding it out right now. I'm up there on South Mountain, and you know, I'm studying the archaeologist. I'm buying his books. Matter of fact, it got so crazy in 2005 that I'm matching the things in the sky to the petroglyphs. You know, I would see like a crooked snake leave South Mountain, and then I would go on the rocks and I would see the exact same formation that I saw the day before or 2 days before, the exact same thing. So once I discovered this and had proof, you know, and I was using, sometimes I would be using the archaeologist's book because you know, he would draw. He wouldn't really take photographs of these petroglyphs. He would draw what he wants people to see, wants people to know what's there. And so there was a lot of stuff in there that I was filming that was in his book. You know, I didn't find the glyphs yet because I'm still stuck. This is 2005, but it's in his book, and I saw the same thing, and it's on film. And so once the news media caught wind of this, then the archaeologist gets involved, right? The archaeologist, you know, he's talking about, you know, the petroglyphs and the things in the sky, and so that brought me up to the UFO Hunter Show. And it was Pat Uskert, who you saw there. He contacted me. This was just a thought back then. Before Ancient Aliens, before the UFO Hunter Show, before any of these shows were on the air, I was doing this first. I was up on South Mountain. I was hiking the mountain. I spent 3 years, more than 3 years. I spent many, many years on South Mountain from one point to the other, and I've done studies on the other mountains around Phoenix, Arizona. I've been documenting these petroglyphs. And my knees are horribly messed up now because of it. You know, there were times where I'd be crawling home because I was just so exhausted of hiking that mountain. I've been there. I saw it. I photographed all this stuff. And a lot of the stuff that was on South Mountain didn't add up. Like, I was finding altars. I was finding sacrificing altars. I was finding evidence of the Mayans. I was finding petroglyphs of Mayans being here. I was finding all this crazy stuff, right? And so I did the pilot for the UFO Hunter Show and the Ancient Aliens TV series, and that was in 2005. And then later on, when the show aired, I did it in 2007, and we went up on the Whiting Mountains and we talked about the petroglyphs. And then by then, I had more evidence to back up my claim because, you know, it was just my word, you know, it was just, well, we think the petroglyphs are talking about UFOs, and we think this, we think that, there's really no evidence. But in between 2005 and 2007, I was digging. That's what an investigator does. You don't go on hearsay, okay? Hearsay is good, but we need proof. Right? We need to back up what is going on here, what you're seeing, what you're doing. If you're going to come out and make a huge, fantastic claim, you're going to have to prove it, you know. And that's what I was doing. You know, I'm an investigator. I'm a serious investigator. I'm investigating the lights. I'm now investigating the Phoenix history because it's all going in a line here. You know, the lights, now the history, now the petroglyphs. Now, let's go to the Phoenix Library. Right? Because for a year, I'm finding all this stuff, and the archaeologist isn't talking about this. And I'm like, wait a minute. If I can find this stuff, how come the archaeologist didn't? And the archaeologist and his team was up there for 5 years documenting the petroglyphs, writing in what they want people to know about. Not what's going on, not what's really there. What does the Phoenix Library have? You know, so I went to the Phoenix Library. And I went to the 4th floor to the government department. And I said, give me everything you have on South Mountain. You know, I'm investigating South Mountain. Give me everything you got. I even had to present my ID. I mean, this stuff was locked away for years. Right? They wouldn't even let me see it without giving my ID first. They gave me this folder, and it was a stack like this. And as soon as I opened it up, what did I see? The first park ranger, Charles Holbrook, staring back at me. Charles Holbrook was the first park ranger from the 1930s up until the late 40s, up until his death. He's talking about where the Holocaunt people went, what happened, what's all here, and it's verifying, right? It's verifying what I'm finding on South Mountain. And so when I bring this evidence to the UFO Hunter Show, when I bring it to Bill Burns and I bring it to Pat Usker, and I say, look at this, look. They're like, you know what, Jeff? The public isn't ready for this. If you're going to talk about these things, you must say crafts. You must say spaceships. You must say technology. Because this is some bizarre stuff you're filming here. The public is not ready for this yet. And I'm thinking, oh my God, dude, this is what's here. Because I'm not filming spaceships. This is South Mountain. This is the Australia Mountains. And the Australia Mountains, what? What is the name? What does Australia mean? Right. Isn't that interesting? Star Mountain. This is where the 1997 Phoenix Lights happened at. Now we can see the video. This is on the west side of South Mountain. There's so many reports of something flying over the city of Phoenix. I'm sure everyone's heard of that this massive V-shaped craft went over the city of Phoenix. Well, but there's no video of this. I mean, we have, this is what, 1997, and I know everybody didn't have cell phone cameras at that time and things like that, but we did have other people out there with video cameras, and why? Because Tom King, he was ready. He was one of the perfect. There's only 4 videos, maybe possibly 5, of the 1997 Phoenix Lights. But yet thousands of people said they saw them, but only 5 videos. And there's no videos of anything flying over the city of Phoenix reported going, 8 miles an hour? A mile-long shaped V craft? But there's no video of this. I've been doing this for many years. I'm waiting for a chance to see some credible evidence of this. I'm waiting to see some video of this because that's what everybody was led to believe. But the only thing that we have of that night is lights on the west side of South Mountain. And why? Especially with Tom King. He was ready. He was living out there on the west side. He was ready for something to happen. Why? Because he was seeing lights nights and weeks before. The 1997 Phoenix Lights, that's nothing. These lights have been going on for thousands of years here in Phoenix, Arizona. This stuff is nothing new. It's just, this is the only video, this is the only sighting that really got noticed. It went from a handful of people saw the Phoenix Lights to 1,000 people saw the Phoenix Lights to 1,000,000 people saw the Phoenix Lights, I mean, it just kind of, the stories and the explanations and what they saw. In my investigations on the Phoenix Lights and interviewing all these people and looking at other people's testimony, it's like the 5th grade. We're back in 5th grade where Johnny skinned his knee on the playground. But by the time it goes around the whole school, oh my God, Johnny's in the hospital, he's going to lose his leg, he's going to die, it's terrible, oh my God. In my opinion, in studying of all this, the 1997 Phoenix Lights event got blown way out of proportion. I'm sorry. But I'm an investigator and I have to go with what I can prove. And I'm not saying nothing went over the city of Phoenix. I mean, I was out there that night. I live here in Phoenix. I was out there. I didn't see anything. But that's not to say that nothing did. I'm just saying that there was no evidence of this. The only evidence we have is these lights on the west side of South Mountain. Again, the mountain. Now we have petroglyphs of the exact same sighting. So the Native American, the Hohokam Indians, they were the first Native Americans here in Phoenix. They lived here roughly around 1,200 years ago. And the more and more investigations I'm doing, you know, I'm convinced that these are prehistoric UFO sightings. There is a story on the Native American story. A lot of you haven't heard of this before. A lot of this stuff has been covered up, buried. First time you're going to hear this stuff. One of the interpretations, one of the Native American myths, is that, you know, because they're saying, how come there's not a written language? How come we don't have any written language? How come all we see is pictures? Well, there's an explanation for that. There once was a language. And from the Native American view, from their stories, they say the holy people taught these people the secret ways, the secret knowledge, and the secret words. And these words was like magic. It was like you could say the secret word and that stereo would rise up and move. And they said that eventually the people, they took advantage of that. And now they're not just moving rocks and stones. They're moving mountains, you know? Okay, they're using these secret words and they're moving stuff, man, they're not supposed to. And so the holy people came back down and says, you guys can't do that. No. Well, I'm taking this language, I'm taking this written language away from you. So generation upon generation upon generation, the secret language and the secret writings were abolished, dissolved, erased through history. So now all they have to tell their story is drawings. That's one point of view on why there is no writing, there's only petroglyphs. So this is the west side of South Mountain. I filmed this in 2010. And you can see that there's no smoke. They're like balls of energy. They're like spheres of plasma. Right? This is the exact same spot where the 1997 Phoenix lights happened at. Here we have the petroglyphs on South Mountain. We have some lights in the sky there. We have a little man here, he's looking up at the lights, and we have a dog there on the right. This is filmed on the east side. This is 2004. And they're all trying to say that we're seeing flares. Oops, we're fast forwarding. This was filmed in 2004. Okay, so the lost city is Cibola. So, you know, in those years, in those time years, when I'm researching this, you know, like I said, I'm finding all this evidence. I'm finding Mayans and altars, and I'm finding tombs. And I'm finding what looks like makeshift pyramids out there on South Mountain, and they're hills. But are they man-made hills? Are they man-made hill pyramids? I think on Holbrook Trail, I think there is. I really think that hill that I'm looking at is a hill made by the Hobokoms and the Mayans. So I'm going to the Phoenix Library, and I say, give me everything on South Mountain, and they give me this folder, and it's talking about it's showing me Charles Holbrook. I believe he's the next picture. There he is. That's Charles Holbrook. Now, he was a little guy. He wasn't that tall, maybe 5 foot nothing. And he carried some big 6-shooters. And he was a little guy, but he was a big man when it comes to his history and what he did. Because I found information on this guy, not only in Phoenix, but in Utah, in California, and New Mexico. There's files locked up on this guy that I can't even get to. And so he was a major authority in his day. He just wasn't a park ranger for South Mountain. He was serious. He was a major guy, and all the people respected Charles, and so did the Native Americans at that time. And they told Charles what happened to the Holocaust. They told Charles the real history of Phoenix. Because they're saying, because the Phoenix bird, right? The Phoenix bird rose out from a formal civilization. But they're not really telling you what that formal civilization is. The archaeologists are saying, well, the Hohokam people here, they were peace-loving people, and they were masters of the canal systems, and they were here for 1,000 years, and all of a sudden they disappeared because of drought. They walked away. Cool, where'd they go? We can't find any evidence of where they went. I know, I've looked, I've tried. There's no evidence of where these people went. But what does the natives tell Charles? And what does Charles write in his document? You see, he did tours on South Mountain also. And a lot of the stuff that he learned, he told people ended up being, and he told people what happened to the Hohokam people. In his stories, in his writings, in the folder that has been covered up in the Phoenix Library for 80 years, away from the public eye, his writings say that when the Hohokam people first arrived here in this Valley of the Sun, they didn't know how to live. So the spirits of the earth and sky came down from the heavens, up from the ground, and they taught these people how to live. It's fascinating too because they say that the Hopis say that they learned how to weave their baskets from watching Spider-Woman in the sky weave her web. And that's how the Hopis learned how to weave their baskets. And he said, not only the Hohokams were here, but the Mayans were here also. And there were sacrifices. The exact same stuff that's going on in Mexico was going on here in the Valley of the Sun. It's only natural, it's only obvious because Arizona was a part of Mexico back in the day. So of course the Mayans were here. Of course their traditions and their religion, their beliefs and their everything followed them from Mexico over here. And I really believe what brought them here to the Valley of the Sun was the lights, man. I think they followed them. They followed the lights. They followed them all the way to South Mountain, just like what I did. The light showed me where to go. The light showed me to South Mountain. I believe that's how the Mayans, I believe that's how the Hohokam people arrived here, and they settled here in the valley because of the Phoenix lights. So there was worshiping going on, there was sacrificing going on to the Phoenix lights, to these things that we see in the skies today. And for some reason, the sacrificing stopped. They don't know why yet. Right? We really haven't figured out why. But when the sacrificing stopped, that's when things, because we're looking at the desert now and it's all dry and desolate and just there's no water. It wasn't like that back in the Hohokam days. It was a tropical-like landscape. There was green grass, there was water flowing everywhere. And I find this evidence on the mountains of Phoenix. I find so many dried up waterfalls on the mountains of Phoenix. It's crazy. There's so much weathering on the mountains around Phoenix. I mean, it was a major water system. So it wasn't all dried up and desolate like it is today. Why? Because the sacrificing was going on for the gods, for the Phoenix lights, for the feathered serpents, for these orbs, for these things that we see in the skies today. And so they stopped the sacrifice, and that's when things started to dry up. Things started to die off. And the tribal people are yelling at their leaders and their elders, why did you stop the sacrifice? Look, the water has stopped. There's no green grass anymore. It's getting hot. Everything is dying. Why did you stop the sacrifice? And then from Charles Holbrook's writings, from what he learned from the first Native Americans there, because this story has been taught through generation upon generation upon generation upon generation. This information is a type of taboo, is a type of, we don't talk about this anymore. This is why you don't know about it. This is why I didn't know about it until I discovered it. I discovered this history. Because it tells a history, not just a simple peace-loving people, the Holocaust building the canals and being loving and peaceful and everything's good and gravy, and then they went somewhere else and they left everything behind and just disappeared, like the archaeologist wants us to believe. This is telling a different story. This is saying that when the sacrificing stopped, that's when the spirits came from the east. Now some say the devil. Some say the devil came from the east. And they started taking these people up into the sky, never to return. Now Charles Holbrook writes in his journals, he goes on to say that there were some people that witnessed this, right? And they were afraid. They saw the phoenix. They saw the phoenix lights coming down, picking people up. They saw all these orbs and flying serpents, and they saw the gods coming and taking their people up. And they were afraid, and they ran into the caves, and they hid until it was all over with. And when they came out, everybody was gone. They're like, dude, no, we are not going to live in this valley anymore. They cursed this valley of the sun. They say they will never live in this valley of the sun ever again. This is a cursed land, because they knew if they were going to continue to live in this valley, then eventually they would have to go back to war with these spirits of the earth and the sky. So Charles Holbrook goes on to write, he says that they piled up the gold. He says the gold was as tall as the tallest saguaro cactus and as round as the sun. And they buried them in tombs around South Mountain. And they vowed never to come back to this valley of the sun. So they went back to their homeland. They went back to Mexico. And so for 400 years, nobody lived in what now in the place we now know as Phoenix, Arizona. It was a desolate, cursed valley. There were tribes on the outskirts that saw the lights, that saw these things in the sky. And they were afraid. And rightly they should be, because they knew what happened to the last people, to their ancestors. They dealt with the Phoenix lights. They were in contact with the Phoenix lights. These things taught them stuff. But look what happened to them afterwards. So they stayed away. That was a forbidden area. And there's a lot of Native Americans today who understand this and won't step right into that Phoenix. They won't step into the lands around this area here. Because the lights, man, the lights are bad. And they know. And so there's a lot of shamans and medicine men and people that I've tried to talk to. And when you start bringing this stuff up, no, they walk away. As a matter of fact, remember I told you that when I had Dave come up there and teach me the petroglyphs, I told him I wasn't telling him what I was doing. I didn't tell him who I was, what I was doing. I just said, hey, teach me the petroglyphs. Well, when we got down off the mountain, I said, hey, Dave. I said, you familiar with the Phoenix lights? He goes, yeah. He goes, well, you know what? I'm working on this theory that the petroglyphs here on the mountain have something to do with the lights in the sky. He looked at me. Okay, dude. That was it. And he will not talk to me to this day. He will not get back to me. That's it. He won't talk to me about this stuff anymore. I've tried other elders and some of these shamans, some of these medicine men, some of these elders have brought me aside, and we've sat in their hogans and we've talked about this. They won't go on camera, unfortunately, because I tried, but they told me, look, you know, you can't do this, you can't see, this is, you know, this is taboo stuff. We're not supposed to know about this stuff. But yet, here it is. We have to look at it. This is part of our history. I believe that this information doesn't need to be covered up anymore. I believe Charles Holbrook led me here. The lights led me here. Charles Holbrook led me to the library. Charles Holbrook is talking to me from beyond the grave and saying, dude, you're right. This is the paperwork here. I'm telling you my story. You've been up there on South Mountain for 2 years now. Now I'm bringing you all this information. Here it is. And see, that would explain on what happened to these people, because the petroglyphs show these things coming down and picking up stick figure men and taking them off into the sky. That would explain on some of these other tribes that were masters of their lands for hundreds and thousands of years, and then all of a sudden they just simply disappeared. Not only did it happen to the Holocaust, but it happened to some of the other tribes around the world also. And here we can see, this is interesting. So this is one of the Mayan temples, and I want you to concentrate on these symbols here. And then we know what these are, right? Those are, this is in the ball court, right? Here we go. There's one there, there's one there, there's one there. And so they used to play a type of soccer, right? And they used to throw the ball into the hoop. But it wasn't a ball, my friends. It was the enemies and the losers' heads. Yeah, that they would throw through. Yeah. Yeah, it wasn't a ball. It was people's heads that they were throwing through the hoop. Here again, we can see this type of formation here, this type of design. Now look at South Mountain. See that? Here's where the evidence is. This is just only one piece of some of the Mayan petroglyphs that I found, some of the Aztecs and Mexico beliefs that I found on South Mountain. And look at these things above it. See that? An orb and an orb and an orb? See that formation there? Was it a UFO in the sky? I believe so. I find it interesting too that some of these pyramids, when you double image it, it looks like some of the stuff that people are reporting today. Coincidence? I don't know. Could be. Where did the Holocaust go? So I believe we just discussed that. And here we go. Here's a perfect example of what looks like an orb, and it's got this line. And that was one of the controversial things. One of the things that some of these other skywatchers were criticizing me on, you know, because everything was fine and gravy and good, and I'm making the news, and I'm doing news stories, and I'm doing all this stuff, you know, because I'm saying I don't know what it is, because I'm saying still unexplained, okay? So I wrote a book, it took me 15 years to get it done, and a lot of work, a lot of hiking, a lot of research, and I'm finding this evidence, and I'm saying, you know what, guys? I don't think these things are spaceships. I don't think they're crafts. I think these things are alive. You know, that those lights, that's not a spaceship. That's a living creature. Well, that's when all this other UFO community, they started hitting me. This guy's a hoaxer. He's throwing balloons. And because, look at that. You see that line right there? You see that line, right? So yeah, some of these videos, some of these sightings, like I said before, this is just the beginning. The lights, the orbs, all this stuff, there's more to it. There's more that you were gonna see, I mean, it's already happening now. It just hasn't been really publicized yet. So remember, you heard it here first, folks. This is gonna change. Okay, they're already starting to admit now on some of these cable shows that these things are alive, and they're not spaceships. And where did they get this information from? I've been doing this for years, right? Now they're starting to bring, slowly but surely, bring this information to the public. So I'm bypassing all that, and I'm telling you straight up, you're hearing it first. This is going to change. The orbs, the lights, the things we see now, the things that we are used to seeing, this is going to change. This is just the beginning. Soon, we're going to see them morph. We're going to see them anthropomorph. They're going to look like different shapes. They're going to change shapes. They're going to change colors. They don't make any noise. They don't cast any shadows. I've seen them go over South Mountain hundreds of times. No shadows. Right? And what do? They go into the mountain. When he was telling me, oh yeah, you know, that crack is the emergence point, I'm thinking spaceships into that. No, I've seen it. It's pretty amazing. I understand why they call these things spirits. Because when they come down out of the sky or when they leave the South Mountain, they're solid, right? And then when they start to come down closer, they're like a ghost. They're like a spirit now. You can see through them until all of a sudden they absorb themselves into the stone. Now I'm not saying spaceships, alien technology, and this stuff isn't real. I've seen some things personally that could resemble a craft. I've seen a flying triangle. I've seen other things that could resemble a spaceship, right? And why not? The scientists have found 7 Earth-like planets on the outskirts of our solar system, and wants to say that there's an advanced civilization there who has visited Earth before. I'm open to that. I'm not saying that's not what's here. I'm saying that we're also dealing with something else. A living creature. Just as the oceanographers are finding new species of life below the ocean, this is a new species of life, folks. This thing is real. These things are alive. And I'll give you another secret. I'll give you another hint here. They're not from another planet. This is their planet too. They've always been here. They've just been hiding. And why? A lot of people asking me, well, how come they're not landing on the White House lawn? How come they're not talking to us? It's because why? Let's look at the history of these things. Let's look at the history. So when the Native Americans got here, they didn't know how to live. So they got help from these beings. Right? And in return, man worshipped these beings. Right? We all know this. We've all been studying it. We've heard this. We know this. This is part of the folklore here. Is these tribal men worship these gods. So, if one came down and says, hey, it would be front page news for about maybe a few weeks, but then everybody would have to go back to work. Everybody would have, they got bills to pay, they got to do this, got to do that. We don't have time to worship you. Right? So they're waiting. So the Hopi say we're in the 4th world, some other Native Americans say we're in the 3rd. A difference, but each time the world changes, either from fire, from flood, from cold, right? We know this. So the world has changed. We've had 3 different worlds, 4 different worlds, and so now we're about ready to enter the 5th. And is that one of the reasons why we're seeing so many of them lately? There's so many showing us now. There's shown so many here in the skies now, because no one really knows the day and time when a major event will take place where there won't be any food, there won't be any water. But they're going to see these things in the sky, right? And then one's going to come down and he's going to turn himself into a man, right? And he's going to say, look what I can do. I can clean up the water. I can clean up the air. I can give you food. I am the person you've been waiting for 2,000-3,000 years. Worship me. I am the one. But again, it's the false one, just like what happened last time. And look, so we have this orb, we have this line, and we have this man. And this thing is taking this man into the sky. So that's my point. It's not time for them to make contact with us. The people that they will make contact is the people who will need them. And we just don't need them yet. So what are they doing? They're watchers. They're watching us, right? They're waiting. They're showing some people that they're here. And a lot of people, they see them, they still, don't truly understand what they're looking at yet, And that's why I did what I did. I had to investigate this. I went down this road thinking this, but everything's taking me down this way, man. And I have to go with the credibility. I have to go with what history says the Phoenix Lights is. And the Phoenix Lights and the stuff that we see in the skies tells us a grim story. And this is the major cover-up that's going on here. Here again. We have a barbell in the sky. We have an orb. We have this guy. And he's hanging onto this barbell. And you can see his legs there and his hands. And he's hanging onto the barbell. Have another orb there. I have this crazy looking anthropomorph over here. These are prehistoric photographs of what happened to the Hohokam Indians. They're telling us. The evidence is just overwhelming. When we look at the petroglyphs and their true interpretations, and not just say, well, it's just graffiti, it's just telling us, a story. It is telling us a story, man. It's telling us what happened to them. This is the only way that they were allowed to tell us. Because their written language was taken away from them generations before. Here again. This is on South Mountain. And we can see these barbells, right? But look in the middle here. Look at this. Look at this window. There's a guy there. You can see his leg and his hands, his arms and his hands. See that? A lot of people say, dude, that's a craft, man. What if this entity, what if this being is actually absorbing this man and taking him off into the sky? On Holbrook Trail, there's an area, I climbed way up on top, it's really cool. There's like a pyramid, and then like another pyramid, and then over here, and then like this valley, this open area, and then I climbed up on this hill, and there's like a stadium up there, man. I stood up there, and there's all these rock-looking benches, and on the bottom of this valley is this petroglyph, and I think I showed it on here, and showing like these orbs in the sky, and these flying serpents, right, and all this crazy stuff, and people would sit up there and watch what was going on. Charles Holbrook goes to write and says that other tribes from all over, many nations, came to Phoenix, Arizona, came to the Valley of the Sun, came to South Mountain. Oh, and by the way, it wasn't called South Mountain, it was called Mount Sepoa, Mountain of Mercy. And so Charles Holbrook, he writes, he goes, it was a handful of corn for a handful of gold. For trade and for worship, all nations used to come to this valley and basically watch the Phoenix Lights and watch what was going on here. This stuff has been with us for thousands of years. This isn't nothing new. When you ask Mother Earth about the Phoenix Lights, they'll say, oh yeah, those things have been here before you guys, man. So tombs. One way to understand the petroglyphs. Whoops, let's go back to that if we can. I'm not sure if it's going to let me. Okay. So that's kind of cool. We'll go with that. So the petroglyphs here, if you can see that, the petroglyphs here. Okay, so this is in front. These petroglyphs is in front of this hill. Alright? So it's facing, when you're looking at the glyphs, right behind it are these two pyramids. The pyramids I was just talking about. And one way to understand the petroglyphs is you're just not supposed to look at the art, but you're supposed to look at the whole landscape. because the artist is putting in the landscape. This is some of the reasons why we see petroglyphs high up on cliffs. When we look up on a cliff, and we see a petroglyph up there, what is it, like an orb or something? It's because the artist is telling you, look, I want you to look up. I drew this in the sky. I saw this in the sky. So the only way to explain this to generations is you have to draw it in the sky. And they put it in certain places where the events took place at. This is the reason why sometimes we find petroglyphs over here, but we don't find any petroglyphs over here. Why not? Because nothing happened here. It happened over here. So it's a prehistoric photograph of what happened right there. It didn't happen over here because there's no photographs, there's no drawings over here. It happened here. This is the reason why we're not supposed to take the petroglyphs, because you're removing history. You're removing that story from that area. And so there's a lot of petroglyphs, especially with the coyotes, right? You see a coyote and he's pointing in a direction, he's pointing somewhere. Well, you want to follow him. You want to go in that direction because he's telling you where the next petroglyphs are, where the next story is. Follow that direction. There's deers out there with antlers, right? And so when you look back and you take a step back from that deer antler, and you look on the trails behind you, the antlers is the trails on the landscape behind you. So it's like a map. So this deer with this weird looking antlers is actually the trails behind him telling you where sacred spots are on the mountain. So this is how we understand the petroglyphs. You have to include the whole landscape in it. If a coyote or an anthropomorph or a man or somebody is facing that direction, he's telling you to go that way, man. Because there's the next story. So here we have this petroglyph here, and it looks like, look at this, see? It's drawn out pyramid, and it's a serpent. It's a serpent. Right? And then we have something above it here, right? Above the valley of the pyramids. And then there's something here in the middle. And so that rock, the petroglyph rock is right in this area. And it's talking about these pyramids here. And then that rock in there, that petroglyph, is showing something in the middle of this mountain. To me, this doesn't look normal. This looks like something that has been buried or has been man-made constructed. And so I went on the other side of this. I went through this valley here, I ended up on the other side, and I looked, and yes, there is what looks like a possible door that has been covered up throughout the years, throughout the generations. There's boulders. You can't get in there. I believe that we're looking at something that's buried there. And you know what? One of the interpretations also is that the Phoenix Lights is actually guarding some of the things that are concealed in these tombs. Because they say that the Mayans are supposed to come back and reclaim it. They're supposed to reclaim. It's supposed to start over again. So the Mayans are going to come back. And so the waiting, all this stuff is hidden away for all this stuff to be used once again. And the Phoenix Lights is guarding what's buried on South Mountain. And that's another reason, why South Mountain? Here we go. Why South Mountain? All right, so the city of Phoenix made South Mountain a government park. Why? Why not make a mountain a government park? Why not make the White Tank Mountains? Why not make the Superstition? Why take on South Mountain? What is so special about South Mountain? How come we can't go over there and start digging stuff up? Why? Or we go to jail for 20 years. Why? They want you to stay on the trails. Why? Because when you go off the trails and when you look and you study and you hike and you explore, you find all this stuff that they're not supposed to tell, that they don't want you to find. So when you find a tomb, like I did, I found 4 tombs on South Mountain. I'm sure there's plenty more, but there's 4 confirmed that I found. And so when you find something like that, you can't go in there and dig it up. That's why they made South Mountain a government park. And I just don't understand why no one has ever questioned that before. Oh, it's it. And I think it's one of the biggest government parks in the United States is South Mountain. But no one's asking why. Why? What's so special about that mountain? Well, because it's a holy mountain, and because these things visit the mountain on a yearly basis, on a regular basis. These things are here, and the history of this mountain is sacred, and there's stuff buried in there. And they're not going to tell you that, you know. But that's, in my opinion, that's right. Here we go. See that? Look at that. This is how we study the petroglyphs. See that there? See the stone is right in front of this hill. This here. And this is a serpent, because this area here, where these petroglyphs are found at, the one I told you about, you stood up on me and you looked. There's tons of serpents there. Tons of flying serpents. Especially up there in this one area. I think I showed it here. There's up high, of course, because the artist wants you to look up. And when you look up, you see a man and his goat looking up at a flying snake in the sky. And so this is the area of the flying serpent. Now, in studying South Mountain and watching it for so many years, I found out where like all these doors are, right? Where these things are coming and going from. And I learned, it's cool too, because South Mountain, the landscape changes. It's so weird. The landscape changes. Like it'll be like really cool over here, and then over here it's just kind of different, and then like over here it's different, and then over here it's different. Well, so is the story of the petroglyphs. So I discovered that on one side, like over here, there's spirals and doorways and flying serpents, right? And then a mile down or a few blocks down over here, the landscape changed. So does the petroglyphs. Now the petroglyphs are talking about orbs and spirals and stuff. Now we come over here to this part of the South Mountain. Now it's changing. It's talking about flying crosses. And now we're going over here, and now the petroglyphs have changed, and what are they talking about? They're talking about crooked snakes, right? So I'm discovering that it's like the same type of race, if you will, but different types of entities. So we have flying serpents here, we have orbs here, we have phoenix lights here, we have crooked snakes here, we have flying crosses here. We have many different symbols throughout the whole landscape of South Mountain, with different stories on what these symbols represent, what these symbols are talking about. I thought it was fascinating. All the information is there. We just have to understand it. We have to use a third eye. We have to understand it. We have to take all this stuff into consideration. We have to have an open mind too, because if you have a closed mind, you're seeing flares, you're seeing balloons, you're seeing trash in the wind. These are just some Indians high on peyote. This doesn't mean anything, so it's pointless. But if you have an open mind and you really want to know what's going on here, the petroglyphs are telling us. The petroglyphs are telling us, look at this. Here we have the flying serpent, and we have the 2 hills, the 2 pyramid hills in the background. Look at this in the middle. See that? It's telling you something's there. Something is in this pyramid. Here's another one. So this is on the other side of South Mountain. This is on the west side. This is kind of cool. It's like a little pyramid, right? It's kind of neat. There's the city of Phoenix right there. So it's really close. It's really close. So we find this here. And now we find, look at this here. This is interesting. So this is facing like, so southwest. And we find this area here. It looks like a hallway. As a matter of fact, it is like a hallway. There's a petroglyph there. There's something there. And it's like a hallway going into the pyramid. In front of it is crazy because we find Roman numerals in front of it. Now that's not Indians. That's not Hokam. Okay? Someone's marking this. Someone has marked this tomb. Alright? Somebody knows what's here. And one of the lectures that I was doing a few years ago, somebody came up to me and said, "Hey, have you been on this part of South Mountain yet?" And I was like, "No, not yet." You know, he's like, "There's Roman numerals up there too." I said, "Really?" He goes, "Yeah." He said, "I found some Roman numerals up there also." And so, in my mind, I think what's going on is, you know, before the government, before everybody got here, you know, someone came in and documented. Now there is like evidence of Freemasons and things like that. You know, I mean, the first governor of Arizona, he was a Freemason. Matter of fact, him and his family is in a tomb outside the Phoenix Zoo, and it's a pyramid. Him and his family's in a pyramid, right? The only pyramid in Phoenix is this pyramid, and it's the governor, the first governor of Phoenix, and him and his family were Freemasons. And it's crazy too, because that pyramid looks exactly like the pyramid we see on top of it. Perfect, right? So, we have these Roman numerals. That tells me something that someone else is out here mapping. They're documenting where all these hidden chambers are, hidden tombs are. Look at that there. And see on top of the entrance, we find this white paint. We can see this white paint from space, from Google Earth. Why is there a white symbol on there? Why did the Army put a white symbol there, right? You know, X circle marks the spot, I guess, right? Right, Something is there. This is from space. This is Google Earth. You can see that circle there, right? And then there's the hallway right there. Here's the Pyramid Hill. So it's going into, yeah, somebody is documenting this. And you know it's weird too, because like, I think I've been in some of these areas, right? And from what I see and experience, I think there's like secret cameras out there or something. Yeah, because it's just too weird, because I'd be up like next to some of these tombs, and then all of a sudden this white airplane, right? He's circling. He's circling me. I'm like, whoa, you know? And there's a story on how there's gold buried up there. I think we'll get into that a little bit later, but I'm going to talk about it now. That there's gold buried up there at Padre Hill, right? We'll talk about Padre Hill and the history of that, but there's gold in little pouches on Padre Hill, right? And so in Holberg, he writes about it in his journals. He talks about it. And he gives a description, you know, it's southwest of the two peaks, and it's over here by the Natural Bridge, and then it's quarter mile. So it's all encoded. And it took me 2 weeks to figure out what he was talking about. And I finally ended up finding Holberg's cave and where the supposed gold is. There is soft earth there. I don't think, in my impressions of it all, it looks like, I mean, it's a man-made cave. You can see that whoever built this was huge, powerful, and was able to move these stones. We'll talk about that later, hopefully we got time. But I think the gold is buried around here. I just think that's just a marker, right? I think because there's other hidden places around that area where it would be possible to hide something, but they're using Padre Cave as a point of reference. But I go up there, I find it, and then the next day I go back there, and what do I see? I see horse tracks, and I see dog tracks. And this is high up on the hill. This is high up on South Mountain, all right? And it went to every spot that I was at. Every spot that I was at, there was the dog tracks went over here. dog tracks went over here, every spot that I was at. So somebody knew, somebody was watching me, they knew I was up there. All right, and so we talked about white airplanes and how they were watching me in 2004. Now I go to South Mountain in 2005, and now I'm seeing black helicopters. Not only black helicopters, but white airplanes. And it was crazy too, because like I would watch these doors, because I see them come and go from this mountain. I see them, and then a black helicopter, right? Because this flying serpent left South Mountain, and I took that to the news, and so that aired. And as soon as that aired, like 2 days later, a black helicopter comes in. He goes right to that area. It happened in the morning. I was the only one that saw where that serpent came out of, what canyon that serpent came out of, but yet that helicopter went right to that canyon. And he stopped. I filmed all this. I documented, I watched this happen. And then he went over here and he checked that door I was watching. He checked that door I was watching. Then he checked this door. I had no idea. Thank you very much. Then he went to this door. Oh, I'm watching that one. Then he went to this door. Oh, I didn't know when there was the thank you. And then he went to that door. And then he went right back to that canyon well. He did that 3 times. And then he faced my window. Wow. Come on now. And sometimes the helicopters would get bold. It was crazy. And they would just fly right over my window. So yeah, they know I was watching. And then when I'm on the South Mountain, one would be flying around, or an airplane would watch what I'm doing. So yes, someone else is watching what's going on here. Someone is very close by, is guarding this. Oh, you know, I had this just recently. This one guy contacted me about 6-7 months ago, and he went to check out this tomb. So I told him places where this tomb, one of the tombs was located. So he went over there. He was going to try to dig it up. He was going to try to do something. And I'm like, dude, watch it. You know, I'm like, because the cops, dude. Because you're not supposed to have metal detectors out there, right? And this is how I think someone's watching. There's cameras out there because my friend and I, like a couple of years ago, he took his metal detector out there, you know, and as soon as we got back, we had a cop follow us. Yeah, out of the park. He followed us for about half a mile. Well, we really thought he was going to pull us over. I mean, we didn't find anything, but he did follow us, and we did have metal detectors up there. And so, yeah, he followed us out of the park. As soon as we got down, yeah, it got pretty intense. And so this guy, he contacts me out of the blue. He's a treasure hunter. He saw my stuff on the internet. He wants to go look at one of these tombs. I directed him, and I said, dude, I wouldn't do anything over there, you know, just be careful. And so when he got back down, there was cops sitting in the parking lot. He's like, dude, you're right, there's cops here. You know, I'm like, yeah, dude, I'm telling you, you know, I think someone is watching these areas. I don't know how, I don't know where. I mean, we've seen these fake cactuses with these cameras in them. I haven't been across any of them. But, you know, they try to, like the road, the city of Tucson and Phoenix, they put cameras in these fake cactuses, you know, to catch these red light runners, right? Something's going on. They know something is going on. Now look at this here. So we have a man here, right? And then so the arms, look at the arms. So when the arms are up, that means he's in a peace and pose. He's like, you know, like he's alive. But this one is down. See how the arms are down? Okay? That's a symbol for death. Now look, he's leading this guy up into here. Now look at this. This is blocking our way. This is blocking, not only, look at all this debris here. Right? So we have the Roman numerals here. And then now we walk past the Roman numerals. Now we're going up into the hallway, and we find this huge stone blocking our way, right? And then we find these petroglyphs here on the side of it. Now look at this. When we come up on top, look at this. Somebody very big, very powerful, broke these stones up, pushed them and broke them up here. And then they pile all this stuff. So someone has buried the entrance to this tomb, because the pyramid's up here, and we're walking through the hallway here. We came across our first obstacle with that big slab of stone here, and now our second obstacle is these stones here and all the debris that's buried here. And we can see on how it was cut and pushed and broken apart and set in place for at least 2,000 years, maybe longer. It's been sitting there. Here we're on top of it. And we can see, see how smooth this is and see how rounded off that is? It matches this stone over here. So someone very big, very powerful, broke this stone up, broke these stones up, pushed them, broke them in here to cover up this, and then took this one that was over here, he picked it up, and he stood over here, and he threw it against this wall. How do we know he threw it? Let's look at the evidence. Here we can see this, how smooth it is here. And then we can see how this stone here, now look at this here. You see these here? Those are scratch marks from where it bounced off the wall. So he cut it off over here, he picked it up, he stood over here, and he threw it in there, and it bounced off the wall, scratch, 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 stayed. And it's been sitting there for at least 1,000 years, maybe longer. This is on South Mountain. You won't hear this anywhere else. This is the stuff that's been covered up. Here we go, here's a better view of it. See these scratches? This big stone did that. And then you can tell it did it, because look at that, see that? And I have a deer looking up. And look how precisely that's cut. Is that crazy? Look at that. That's not somebody with a billy club. Look at that. That is perfect cut. That's stuff we see in Egypt and in Mexico. I mean, it's precisely cut. We'll talk about who possibly did that here in a minute. The feathered serpent. Well, we're talking about the feathered serpent and the flying. So this is art in Mexico, and we have the flying serpent. Look at that, he's eating a man. And then this is the flying serpent here in Mexico. And then we can see more of the flying serpent here. And in South Mountain, we find flying serpents here. Whoops. Let's go this way. This is the canyon. Remember I told you the flying serpent came out of this canyon? On top of that canyon, I find these two guys looking up at a flying snake. That whole canyon, all down the sides of South Mountain, from the top all the way to the bottom, there's tons of spirals. Tons of spirals, emergence points, doorways into the underworld. And this is the exact same spot where I filmed that flying serpent. This is on a mountain, just north of South Mountain. And we can see a guy here, and he's looking up at flying snakes. See that? So I believe we're dealing with something else here. Not only are we dealing with people who are reporting crafts and abductions and things like that, but we also have something else here. And I believe this is the major cover-up, not only of Phoenix, but around the earth, because it's the same stories. It's the same petroglyphs, it's the same stories, the same carvings all over the world. I have people emailing me petroglyphs, pictures from Saudi Arabia, from Africa, from Israel, all over the place. And it's the same petroglyphs, and it's crazy because it looks like it's the same artist. That's how precise it is. That's how perfect it is. It's the same story, but told just a little bit different, right? Each tribe or generation, you know, twists the story here, adds the story there, but it's basically the same point. Here's that one petroglyph I was talking about. This is on South Mountain, and we're looking up. We're on Holbrook Trail, because they dedicated Holbrook. After his death, they buried all his information away from the public eye, and they named a trail after him, and they also named his lookout point after him. But that's it. That's all you hear. That's all you really know of Charles Holbrook, is his trail and his lookout. That's it. They don't tell you what he did. They don't tell you that he was in charge of protecting the gold, protecting the tombs. And so there was a lot of times where I mentioned earlier that he was telling stuff and it got out of hand. And so for instance, when people first heard that there was gold on South Mountain, that's when the people of Phoenix, some of the people of Phoenix, started bum rushing South Mountain looking for gold. So there, in his book, in his writings, his son writes a book about his father. I found that in the library too. And his son writes on how he was chasing people away from some of these tombs. His son writes that one time his dad was sitting up on a hill and he was watching this guy dig on this hole. And as soon as the guy got far enough in, because the guy put his shotgun against the tree. And as soon as the guy got deep enough, Charles Holbrook then jumped down and grabbed this guy's shotgun and told him, dude, you need to stop, you need to get out of there and never come on South Mountain again. That was one of the stories. Another story is, for so many years, because, I mean, the lost city of Cibola, I mean, what is that? The lost city of gold. And why is it named Cibola? Because it's from the Spanish conquistadors looking for the 7 cities of gold. And Charles Holbrook really was, and I'm convinced too, that the Valley of the Sun, that Phoenix was maybe one of the lost cities of gold. That's why the gold is buried on South Mountain now and some of the other mountains around Phoenix. And so the Spanish conquistadors were here. And the archaeologists, they don't want to admit that the Spanish came this far, but I found evidence, and so did Holbrook find evidence that the Spanish came this far, and I personally, you can see in my book, I personally found Spanish gold, or not Spanish gold, Spanish money and on South Mountain. 400-year-old Spanish coins on South Mountain. It's in my book. I take photographs of it. So the Spanish were here, the lost city of Cibola, the lost city of gold. And one of those folklores, one of the stories is that while the Spanish was here, they constructed 4 crosses, north, east, south, and west. There's 4 crosses out there. So that was a rumor on South Mountain, that there were crosses, undiscovered crosses left by the Spanish. And then Holbrook writes in his journal, he says, I found it one day, overlooking some blackened rocks. I look down and I see these 4 crosses. He says, it must have taken a mighty army to construct these crosses. Apparently these crosses were huge. Well, he kept that secret for about a year, until one day the city of Phoenix, they made a map. And they put that hill on the map. And what did Charles do? He tells everybody, well, you know what's on that hill? That's where the 4 crosses are. Well, when people got word of that, there were some hoodlums that went up there, destroyed the crosses, started looking for the gold. Charles was pissed. He wanted the city of Phoenix to help him rebuild the crosses, and the city of Phoenix didn't want to agree to that. They said, but you and your friends, if you want, can go up there and rebuild the crosses if you like. So his son writes in his book. He says it was like a trail of ants, He says, the mothers and daughters will be at the bottom of the hill with lemonade and snacks and food and lunch, while the men walked up this hill like ants, carrying concrete and stones and rebuilding these crosses. But that's the end of the story there. That's it. It doesn't, you know. And I've hunted for these. I've hunted for these crosses. I've been looking for many years, and I came to the conclusion that because the city, there's two maps, right? I found a map where it says the crosses were, and then later on, the map says the crosses are over here. So they're giving us two conflicting stories here. And so I've been to this area, and there's just no way any crosses, there's all cactuses, and it's desolate, and it's just horrible. I'm not building crosses there, and I don't think they would either. But over here on the east side of South Mountain, east side of South Mountain was blown up. Most of that mountain on the east side was blown up. And I believe that's where the crosses were, because it only makes sense, because that's where a Spanish name has been found, is on the east side. It was what, 1432 or some date was on there from the first Spanish. And Charles Holbrook put bars over it so they would move that stone, because the city of Phoenix wanted to move the stone. It got to a big deal. Pulled his guns, they're not moving the stone. The city of Phoenix says, okay, we're going to build bars there. So to this day, that petroglyph is still there because of Charles Holbrook. That's in my book also. And I think the crosses were over here, and this was all blown up. And it's interesting too, because when we look on Google Earth, we see all these golf courses, right? And I found this map that the city of Phoenix didn't cover up, I in this folder, saying where some of these cemeteries were. Some of the Indian cemeteries were on the east side of South Mountain. And now golf courses are on some of these cemeteries. And when this was being constructed, the Indians were pissed. They were picketing. It was a bad deal. Right now, there's a wrestler's roost up there on South Mountain, on the east side, in that area. And the owner of that, his daughter is the manager in there now. And so I wanted to go up there and ask her about it, because it was a big thing. The Indians were cursing the golfers, cursing the construction workers, saying whoever plays on our sacred ground is going to die, and blah, blah, blah. It was a big deal. You know, you can't blow up this mountain. Even when they were building that freeway on the west side recently, in the last 20 years, the Indians were pissed. You can't touch South Mountain. It's a holy mountain. You know, but the city of Phoenix did it anyway, and the city of Phoenix blew up these mountains and put golf courses on their graveyards and apartment buildings. That's a big cover up here. That's a big hush-hush. No one's talking about it. But these maps clearly show cemeteries on the east side of South Mountain, right where the apartments are, right where Wrestler's Roost are, right where these golf courses are. That's where the map shows it is. So I went to Wrestler's Roost to try to get an interview. No, don't want to talk to me. They don't want to open up that can of worms again, you know. But that's what the map shows. So we're back to this. Sorry, I get off track. So look, we're looking up. We're looking up. See, I always photograph the sky, because this is high up too. I had to climb. This is high. I climbed way up there to get this photograph and stood on this normal step to get this photograph. But here we have this guy here. We have a goat. The goat don't care. He knows what these things are. He's just, you know, he's flying serpents. Hey, I've seen that before. This guy here, he's looking up at a flying snake. Holbrook trout. And then, here again, on Holbrook Trail, look at this, look at this. We have coyotes here, we're looking up at an orb. There's serpents, right? Look at this guy, he's kind of shooting at deers, maybe hunting. There's a crooked snake looking thing there, an orb, right? This coyote's looking up, right? These pieces are gone for something, which is unfortunate. We have this guy here, he's with a bow and arrow, shooting probably maybe at a flying serpent. Now this is interesting too. Look at this guy here, okay? See the many arms? Look at this staff weapon. Right, now look, he's shooting at a flying serpent in the sky. He's half man, half snake. Now this is interesting. This panel here, I found a few, not a lot, but a few petroglyphs of this type of symbol, this type of petroglyph man, if you will, with 4 arms. And when I see this, and I see the staff, and I see what he's doing, it brings me to a story of India. Because India talks about the Viyamadis, right? The flying machines, the flying Viyamadis. They say, their stories say that there was a war between the good aliens and the bad aliens. And mankind was our prize, right? And apparently, the good aliens won because we're not slaves to these bad aliens anymore. But they say that they had these magical staff weapons. They had these weapons that were able to shoot at these things. Because a lot of people are saying, dude, shoot down that flying serpent, man. Shoot down those lights, And I'm telling, look, I don't think that would work. The bullets and stuff that we have today, it would go right through them. I mean, they're going into solid rock. Okay, so I don't think a bullet or anything would hurt these things, right? But the India legends say that these magical weapons were used to shoot at these things. And some of these magical weapons are still buried here on Mother Earth, waiting for them to be reused again. Because eventually this history is gonna happen once again. So these weapons are gonna have to be uncovered, unburied, to use these weapons again. And so when I see this type of art, and I see these, and look at the India, the 4 arms, the India paintings and such, we see these creatures with many arms, right? Well, so we have this many arms here, and he's shooting with a magical weapon at a flying snake in the sky. Oh, are you serious? Okay, so we'll hurry. More serpents. This is what I believe we're seeing in the skies today. This is not a spaceship. This is not a craft. This thing is alive. Look how it moves. This thing is clearly in control. This is a living creature. This is not technology. This is a living creature. Here in Mexico, you see the exact same type of thing. These flying serpents. Petroglyphs in the sky. So I named this Petroglyphs in the sky is because that's what we're seeing is petroglyphs in the sky. Here we can see 2 men looking up at flying snakes in the sky. This is like my Holy Grail video because I saw the exact same thing in 2005. This flying snake flying above South Mountain. It came out of South Mountain. Since we're running out of time, I'm going to fast forward it because there's so much more to go over. Here we can see that thing, it changes, it morphs, right? Changing. See that? And then I think it's kind of cool, later on in the sighting, this airplane flies right by it. So it makes me wonder what the people in the aircraft saw when they saw that thing fly over it. Here's the flying serpent, or excuse me, the flying spider. This made video of the day, News Channel 3. And it just made me wonder, you know, is this the spider woman who showed the Hopis how to weave their baskets by the webs in the sky? And we can see it's like a type of spider. This thing dropped down out of the sky, sort of right by my window. petroglyphs, we can see one of the exact same things on South Mountain. Here's a carving in Germany from 1500s, and I want us to concentrate on these jacks. All right, I've seen these jacks in the sky. We have the Phoenix Lights, we have these other orbs, all right, we have this long thing here. And then on South Mountain, we find the exact same type of petroglyph on South Mountain. Shapeshifters. So the Native Americans are talking about shapeshifting. So here on A Mountain, we see a group of family members looking up at flying orbs. Right? And as I said in the beginning, this is just the beginning. These orbs are going to change. They're going to shapeshift. What are they going to do? What's going to happen next? What is the next phase for these things? Well, they're going to start growing arms and legs. See that? See this orb here? This body here, this head? This is just the beginning. The lights that we see and the orbs and the other strange things we see, this is just the beginning. Here we have an orb in the middle, and he's morphing, he's anthropomorphing into a likeness of a man. Some people would mistake this as a lizard man. Some would say that that circle, that belly, is him emerging out of halfway outworld, halfway in the spirit world. But in watching these things, I believe these orbs these circles is the orbs, and he's morphing. And look how big it is compared to a regular human. Are these the Nephilim that we read about in some of these ancient scrolls? Possibly. Why South Mountain? So why South Mountain? So they're visiting this valley for hundreds and thousands of years, really. And so why? You know, what makes this mountain so special? Here was the 1997 Phoenix Lights. Here's the lights that I was filming over here with that power plant. So what's up with this? What's up with the mountain and the mountains up here and some of the other mountains around Phoenix? Well, it has everything to do with fault lines. It has everything to do with energy. Remember in the beginning I said that these lights are hanging over a power plant? That power plant's poured down into that energy. Right? So these things are sucking up the energy. So in studying this, it was a pattern. On certain months I'd see a lot of them. In certain months they were gone, and then the seasons would change, and the sun would move, and then these things were back. Right? So the Native Americans say that they're going down into the underworld, but on a scientific analysis, they're going down into that fault line. They're going down into that energy. So we see many UFOs around energy spots. What are spirals? Spirals are symbols for doorways into the stone. Here's a big spiral, right? And see how it's ending here in the crack? See that? Here's one, and we can see this type of lizard. You see how he's like a ghost? He's a ghost first, he's coming out of the doorway, he's a ghost, now he's more solid. Here's a man there. That's exactly how these things are. This is a video of Mexico. You see an orb over an active volcano. Again, energy. Look at the dot in the middle. See the dot in the middle? Another good clue. This is an orb over in Mexico with an active volcano. Here, this is here in Tucson. I filmed the exact same type of orb. Here's a mountain there. This is filmed in night vision. And he's heading towards the mountain. Matter of fact, he goes down on that mountain. Speed it up because we're out of time. He's going right to that mountain. He goes right behind the tree where I can't see him. And here on South Mountain we see a guy looking up in the orb. Here's another one. Coming right over our apartment. This is filmed in night vision. This was filmed 6 months ago, give or take. Flies right by us. Isn't that crazy? Now we have petroglyphs on South Mountain of a guy with an elongated head, right? Just like some of the stuff we see in Peru. He's looking up at a barbell. Barbell in the sky along with the orb, right? He's got his hand on his brow, his hand on his waist. He's looking up at a barbell in the sky. And the city archaeologist, he doesn't draw this, he draws a regular head. He's concealing the fact that this is actually a Mayan head. See that? He's not telling you about that. He wants to hide that from you. Some of these petroglyphs are power symbols. So we have this energy here. Giants in the Valley of the Sun. So it's interesting too, because this is important. So when talking with Dave, right, and he's telling me that there's giants here, and we've already seen possible giants from that big rock that has been broken up and pushed over on that tomb. Somebody big and powerful in that. He's talking about this. He's talking about the Superstition Mountains, and he says when the giants were here and the flood was coming. Remember we said on how there was secret incantations, and secret chants, secret words that we could use, that we could say to move objects. He said that the lead giant used these magical words, and because he didn't want his people to drown. The flood was coming, so he told his people to come stand up on this huge slab of stone, this huge pillar of stone. And he used his powers to raise that mountain up, but the water kept coming. He used his powers to raise that mountain up, but the water kept coming. He used his powers so much that it was huge, it was a big mountain as we see it today, but the water kept coming. And in his last bit of strength, so he didn't want his people to drown, he immortalized his people by turning them all to stone. And here we can look on top of the Superstition Mountains, and we can see the water line and where the flood stopped. Right? And then now we can look up, we can see the giants turn to stone. And we can see the water line, because after he turned the giants to stone, the water stopped. The water stopped right here from the biblical flood. Now we can see the giants up here, and through erosion, it has turned them, we can see the giants, but the erosion has weathered them a lot. And then we have a giant up here on Camelback Mountain also.
Here, Bill.
You're good, just the phone.
There's a giant up on Camelback. There he is. Been up there for thousands of years. And here we see giants on South Mountain, petroglyphic giants. Here again, look how tall this guy is. This is a big wall. This is the city of Phoenix over here. And we can see this huge wall. That's me standing pointing at this crack here. So they made light and shadows here, and we can see right here. This is like a serpent here, and then the light and shadow. This happens during the equinox and the solstice. The shadow hits the sun hits this area, causing this shadow, and then we can see an Indian profile face here, and then here's another profile face here during the equinox. Here again, we can see on how these creatures here are floating in the light, and we can see them in there. We can see this man here touching the light. And on the Superstition Mountains, we can see a giant cougar. How to read the rock art?
We're up pretty much in the sky, because the artist is wanting us to look up, because this is where he saw this happened at, this occurrence at. And so they didn't have video cameras, they didn't have anything else to record, so they did it on special places on where the event took place at. So here we have a spiral. It's a doorway going out, okay, and it's ending up. So the vortex, the doorway, the emergence point is in the sky here. Now, we have this serpent coming out of this spiral. Those of you who have been following me all these 20 years or so know I've filmed many, many serpents in the sky coming and going from South Mountain. This is a perfect example of what the art is trying to tell us here. The artist is telling us that this serpent came out of this doorway here. Now, when we look higher up, he wants us to look higher in the sky. We have what looks like a lizard man, okay? But in reality, what the artist is trying to tell us is, this is an orb here. His head is an orb, his body is an orb, and his tail is an orb. And what is going on here is they're connected together in a line and they're making these shapes. So it looks like they are mimicking what looks like a human figure in the sky. Because that's what these things like to do. They like to shape shift. The Native Americans has been telling us forever that these things, they shape shift. And that's exactly what this being is doing. He's shape shifting into the likeness of a man. We have 3 orbs and he's looking like this.
Well, we're gonna have to end it there because we're out of time. My name is Jeff Wilmine. Thank you guys so much for coming and checking this out. Find my books on Amazon and on Kindle. Search my name, Jeff Wilmine. You can find my stuff all over the place. So yeah, thank you guys so much for coming out. It was an honor. Yes.
When you were filming back in the art theater site, were you using VHS?
I was using a high 8 video camera. Yeah, just like a high 8 tape video camera.
You mean 8mm?
I gotta pick 2 names? Okay? Yeah, we're doing a raffle. So the first ticket is, holy cow, 9105. Awesome. Too cool.
Well, when you were filming like almost 20 years ago with a film camera, were you seeing the UFOs come and go, or only on the camera did that see?
Oh no, I would see it first before.
You see it with your eyes?
Absolutely, yes. And then 9106.
That's me too, but you gotta do it again.
Oh, well. Hey. Okay. There's 6. And we got 2 tickets there. Okay. Okay. And 9095. 9095. 601 9095. Is that Casper? Take another one? Going. Okay, so. And. Oh, lucky number is 9103. Hey, we got a winner. Cool. Thank God. Yeah, so all the stuff that I've been seeing, I see it first. There's sometimes I take a picture, there might be something there. But stuff like that is kind of inconclusive because we really don't know what it is. It could be a fly, it could be a piece of paper, So I always make sure that I see it first before I turn on the camera. So yeah.
Didn't you lecture at the
Catalinas. Yes.
Didn't you lecture at the Tucson Library about 09 or 10 or 11?
Yes.
Yes. The Tucson Awakening Awareness?
Yes. Yeah. Jim Roger. Yeah. He was part of it too. Yeah.
Marjorie Alexander.
Yes. Yeah.
Jeff, you were mentioning towards the beginning that there was no video that you saw of, talking about the Phoenix lights, and I forget the governor at the time, he was on the news that night and they made a big scoop about it. But I recall at that time, there was a woman who lives in the Phoenix area as well, who actually was taking videos of the lights and videos of that, because I remember my wife and I did see a video of that big beam type of technology that was flying at that point. And you had mentioned that you weren't able to find any of that, or had not been able to.
That, her, and everything about that is really, I didn't find any credibility in that. If you read her first book, it tells you where that video came from. It wasn't from her at all. Yeah, so, yeah, that's...
So you're aware of all...
Oh, yeah. Thank you, yeah. Great question. Yes.
You said Charles? How do you spell his last name?
Hollbert. Holbert, yeah. Yes. Oh, yes. Oh, yes. I did a show with him, with Jim Rogers, Clifford Mooney. Remember Clifford Mooney? Yeah. Yeah, so it was really great. He was a great guy. Yes. Yes. Yes, I know, unfortunately. Oh, thank you. Oh, yes. Thank you. Well, there's a lot of CGI videos of that, so there's really no physical evidence of that. Yes, exactly. Even some of these films that you see, like in Harkins Theater in Phoenix during the March 13th event, that's all computer generated, unfortunately. Yeah. They have over the years. Yeah. Oh, there's been some people filming flying serpents and other anthropomorphs. So yeah. Yeah. Since. Yeah. Hey, what's up, brother? Hey, good to see you, man. Ah, cool, man. That's awesome. Oh, yeah, yeah. Okay, cool. Yeah, sounds great. Okay. Yeah, thank you. Oh, wonderful. Okay.
So serpents you see, right? Serpents are called serpents. They're the flying
Yeah, so. Yeah. Yeah. Same stuff. So we can read that stuff, you know, from thousands of years ago, and then we can see the photographs. It's the exact same story. So, and then now we see it from our own eyes. So there is a pyramid of credibility. You know, this is what we can prove. You know. Oh, thanks. Oh, cool. That's great. Yeah, that's awesome. Thank you so much. Pretty cool. I have them. I've been amazed by this. Okay, cool. Oh, yeah. Yeah, we had the same problem in Phoenix. The CC came in and started blowing up Petroglyphs. Oh, yeah. They're cool, man. Great. Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. There's a fault line under that too. So that's it. All the energy spots is taken. Yeah, it is. It is. When I was a Boy Scout, I camped up there when I got on rim. Yeah. I camped Geronimo up there too. So yeah, it's pretty cool. Love it up there. Thanks for coming out. You know, Karen. Yeah, it's best to talk to Karen.
Well, I'm with him, so I'm his wife. Oh, no worries, and I'm here. Thank you for your offer, I appreciate it. You're welcome. You don't have to be a part of
Exactly. No more. Oh, okay. Yeah. I'll see you guys later. There's a lot of company stuff. That's why you come out and you present this, you gotta show evidence.
Trying to find the right thing. I'm not gonna help.
The scientists really don't.
I would just say.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. I know it's not really.
Well, I'm just trying to.
I'm his wife, yeah, I'll take it.
So cool. 5612, yeah, okay. That is down the line. Thank you.
Thank you so much, I really appreciate it.
Yeah, you said when I came, the cat tables out for them.
I'm gonna get 3 today.
Awesome, 4,
Yeah,
great.
that's awesome. I'm so excited. It was meant to be.